welcome to this open event about the Undergraduate Certificate in English Literature. I'm Sandy Byrne, and this is an introduction to the Undergraduate Certificate in English Literature and a taster of what studying literature at undergraduate level is like. I hope that you will have questions. I will pause at some point, and then I will be able to see your questions and I will try to answer them, as will my lovely colleagues. I have here with me today Mary and Tessa is the Undergraduate Certificate in English Literature Administrator, so full of knowledge about all things undergraduate certificate, and between us we should be able to answer your questions. So to begin with, let's talk about the key facts about the course. It's a 2-year part-time course that's the equivalent of the first year of an English BA. So it's very similar to the kind of work, the kind of study and the level of study that you would do were you enrolled on a BA in English in almost any English university. Difference is it's part-time and it's set up with you in mind, with people who have other responsibilities, who might be carers, parents, working, far away from Oxford. There are many reasons to study part-time. And we have 2 study options. Option 1 is face-to-face, in person. So students on the option 1 course come to Oxford for their seminars and tutorials. But students on option 2 work mostly online, though we all come together for hybrid day schools. And those students who are taking option 2 come to Oxford for the Shakespeare Summer School. So for option 1, you would come in for your weekly seminar from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Wednesday evenings during term time. And there are 10 classes per term, 5 followed by a reading week and then another 5. And in addition to that contact time, the students receive a 1-hour tutorial on each assignment, and there are 2 assignments a term. And as I said, everybody attends a 1-week summer school on Shakespeare, and that happens in the September before students go on to year 2. And then there are 3 day schools each year, so 1 day school every term, and those day schools are held at weekends. In addition to that, if students want to and are able to come to Oxford, they can attend any of the lectures in the English faculty. And of course, all students on the undergraduate certificate are members of the Bodleian Libraries. So everyone who can come to Oxford will be able to go into the Bodleian Libraries, and those who are outside Oxford can take advantage of the many facilities of the Bodleian Library that are available online, including a lot of e-texts which you can download. Option 2, as I said, is taught by distance learning. Students attend live seminars, that's in real time, online via Microsoft Teams on 4 Saturdays at each term from 1 o'clock, 1300, and a huge variety of other resources are provided, including recorded presentations. And in the 6 teaching weeks a term, when there's no live session, students attend a group tutorial, and that happens on Thursdays from 9 o'clock until 8 o'clock. We try to organise this so that it suits as many different time zones as possible. And as I said, the option 2, the distance learning students, come to Oxford for a 1-week Shakespeare Summer School in the September preceding year 2. And it's my experience that students love this. It's a chance to study full time, to really devote yourself to your studies and to socialise with your fellow students, really get to know them. And a really intensive week on Shakespeare is a great boon for anyone who studies English literature. It's such a joy. And it's a chance to go to plays, maybe in London or in Stratford. Option 2 students also attend the 3 day schools each year. they do so via Microsoft Teams. And if the students who are on option 2 are able to get to Oxford, they, of course, have exactly the same access to the facilities as the option 1 students. If they can come to Oxford at any time, they can use the libraries, they can go to the English faculty lectures, and so on. So this is how the course is structured. In the first term, which would be Michaelmas term, you would study Approaches to Literature 1, and that's all about different ideas about what literature is, what literary value is, how do we analyse literature, and it's an introduction to close reading. In the second term, which is Hilary term, we study Victorian literature, and in the third term, which is called Trinity term, we study early modern poetry, so authors such as Donne and Herbert. And then during the long vacation in September, it's Shakespeare. In year 2, we have another Approaches to Literature, but this is about literary theory, so such things as structuralism, post-structuralism, feminist theory, Marxist theory, and that's for 5 weeks. And then in the second half of that term, we look at the history of the English language and varieties of the English language. In Hilary term, it's modernism, so authors such as James Joyce and Virginia Woolf. And in Trinity term of the second year, it's early modern drama, so all those gory revenge tragedies, but also comedies and all sorts of delights. And I often find that students particularly enjoy doing a period paper, learning about different ideas, different ways of speaking, different ways of structuring literary text, so different from contemporary writing. The course is assessed partly by continuous assessment, by coursework, and partly by exams. So students produce 2 pieces of coursework for each term, and those are essays of around 2,000 words each. They also produce same sort of essay, 2,000 words, following the Shakespeare Summer School. Then there's a portfolio exam. A portfolio exam means you can do it at home or you can do it in the library. You have the books with you. You've got quite a lot of time to do this. And the approaches to literature, both 1 and 2, are examined in that way. So some questions are posted, students respond to them. They can use books, they can use online resources, they can take a lot longer than they would in a timed exam. And then there are 2 unseen exam papers in year 1 and 2 unseen exam papers in year 2. In year 1, Victorian literature and early modern poetry are both examined by an unseen paper. And in year 2, modernism and early modern drama are both examined by an unseen paper. And those exams happen in June. So I'm going to turn off my sharing in a sec so that I can read your questions about the course, and I hope you have lots. How would the unseen exams take place for online students? We use a system called Inspira, and Inspira is an online exam paper and answer system, and it's quite easy to use, quite straightforward, and students get a chance to practice it long before they have to do it live. So we're hoping for other questions. Is there anything you would recommend we do before the course begins? Yes, students who are accepted onto the course are given a preliminary reading list, which gets them started. And it's always helpful to read in advance, for example, to read some of those great big long Victorian novels. Alice has asked the question, is the workload even or are there some peak months? Well, in a sense, there are peak times just before you're writing your essays and when you are preparing for the summer school, when you're preparing for the exams, but mostly you can portion it out in a pretty regular, consistent way. Another question is, when about in September does the in-person week take place? Usually it takes place around the second week, around 10th of September on. What if work doesn't allow a student to attend? Well, it is an important, a compulsory part of the course. So generally, people are given permission from their employer to attend because employers generally understand that taking a course such as this provides a lot of transferable skills which the employer will find useful. Could you discuss the parameters of the application? I assume that means the parameters for our decisions. We're looking for people who read widely and deeply, who are interested in language, who are interested in the building blocks of literary text. So people have thought not just about the story, but perhaps a bit about the style, the form, the structure of text. We receive your application form, and then if you're invited to interview, the interview lasts about 20 minutes, followed by your questions. And it is a conversation, a friendly, open conversation, not an interrogation. And we will ask you about your reading. And we will also show you a clip from a text, an extract, or a short poem, and ask you to talk about it with us. Entry requirements is the next question. You're welcome to apply if you don't have any formal academic qualifications. But if that is the case, after we've spoken, it is possible that we will recommend to you that you take one of our short courses first to get up to speed. So there isn't a formal entry requirement, but we will judge whether we think we wouldn't be doing you any favours by offering you a place on the course just yet. Question, what is an unseen exam? Why is it called unseen? It just means you haven't seen the questions before the exam starts. So you have not seen the paper until you're told, if you're in a room, you may turn over now, or in Inspira, the process begins, the system goes live. Is it possible to articulate credits into the programme? For example, having completed the 20 credit contemporary British fiction course? No, I'm afraid not. This isn't a modular course, so credits from the short courses wouldn't count towards it. Is there a follow-on course after the certificate to work towards a degree? Most students apply either to the full-time Oxford BA or to another university to do their BA. But quite a number of them come back to continuing education to take the Masters in Literature and Arts, which is part-time, or one of the other master's courses. Is there a way to catch up tutorials or classes if other responsibilities prevent you from attending? If you are unwell, then of course we will do our best to help you catch up. If students fall seriously behind, we might discuss with them the possibility of suspending studies until they are better. There is the possibility of applying for extensions on assignments if you have been unwell. But if a student is regularly missing a lot of classes, that can be a real problem. We'll do our best to help you catch up, but at some point that may not be possible. Another question is, how many books do I have to list and discuss in the personal interview? And should those books be of a specific genre? You don't need to discuss many. We will ask you to choose one. So I would say a fairly short list, and they can be of any genre, but they have to be written in English. So for an English literature interview, we want to be talking about English literature, but it could be poetry, it could be a novel, it could be a play, it could be non-fiction. Whatever you think you can discuss in detail. What opportunities are there for practical application or independent research during the course? And how does the programme support career development for students interested in fields outside of academia? To answer that last bit first, the university has a careers service, which is absolutely excellent. So students can make an appointment and go and talk to a careers advisor. Practical application, it depends what you mean by that. In a sense, I am all for what used to be called perfectly useless education, in the sense that it's not necessarily directed vocationally specifically, but is to improve your mind, to improve your knowledge and understanding. But at the same time, this course, like many others, provides excellent transferable skills. So excellent reading skills, close reading skills, writing skills, organization skills, and research. And you would be doing some independent research for each one of your assignments. You would choose one of the questions that are given in the course handbook and go off to the libraries or download texts and research for your answers. But there isn't a dissertation as such for this course because it's the equivalent of the first year. And students typically write a dissertation later on in their academic career. Next question is, could you explain what tutorials look like? Yeah. If the students were on the BA, they would write an essay and then have a tutorial on it, at which they would read out the essay and discuss it with their tutor and probably another student. For the undergraduate certificate, we do it the other way around. Students come to us with an essay plan, with some ideas, and we discuss it and help them to polish and prepare their essay, their argument, their referencing, the support for their argument, all that sort of thing. Next question is, have you seen success in students for whom English is not their native language? Yes, we've had some excellent students for whom English is a second language. Students who have not either worked extensively in English or studied in English are sometimes asked to provide evidence of their English in the form of having taken one of the many tests available. And we found often that people who do have a second language have a real insight into language that can be quite original, that they're thinking about words in depth and providing some really original ideas about language. So if you think about of an author such as Joseph Conrad, who's writing in his third language, he uses the English language in really innovative and interesting ways. What about the fees payment? Does the payment have to be done all at once, or can the course be paid through the length of the course? There are details all about fees on our course website, and in the chat, I think a link has been put that will tell you all you need to know about the payment of the fees. I applied to an undergraduate degree in literature at Oxford a few years ago. I got through to the interview stage, but was not accepted. Would I still be able to apply to this course? Yes, you would. And what are the shorter courses you mentioned? The short courses are 10-week courses. There are many, many subjects. Some are available online, some of them are available in person. There is, for example, a course called Critical Reading, which is Close Reading 101. There's one on the Victorians, there's one on Jane Austen, there's a couple on Shakespeare, there's American writing, literary theories, all sorts of things to choose from. What is the pass rate for the unseen papers? I assume this means the pass mark, and it's 40. And if you mean the pass rate, we hardly ever have a fail, because by the time people get to the exam, they're generally doing pretty well. So very rarely do we have a fail. How successful are students in going on to the full undergraduate course after this certification? We usually send at least 2 every year to Oxford, and a number of others go to other universities. We've sent a number of people to London, also sent them to Reading, to Cambridge, to Newcastle, Durham. So pretty good is how successful students are. If screenwriting is my focus, would the creative writing diploma be better suited? Yes, it would. We don't do creative writing as part of the undergraduate certificate. So yes, you would be better suited to creative writing. If by the end of the application I've not been able to take a short-term course but plan to, would that be taken into consideration if I do not have formal certification? Not really, because we'd need to know that you'd embarked on it and were doing okay on it. So generally, you would be assessed at the interview on what stage you are at that time. Certainly, we'd be delighted if you were going to take a short-term course, but if you hadn't started it yet, we couldn't really take that into account. And this is a very good reason for applying early, because if you apply early enough that you can take that short course and then apply it again or be reconsidered, then that's an advantage to you. How many students are accepted? How large are the cohorts? We don't usually take more than 18 for each of the cohorts. The number varies from year to year. There are always a few people whom we feel we would not be helping if we took them, but largely our applicants are self-selecting and do pretty well, so that our acceptance proportion is pretty high. Is there an age limit for this course? No, I've taught someone of 84 and she was brilliant. 3 cheers for non-specific education. Thank you, Melanie. Me too. I'm over 50. Do you think I would be too old for this course? Absolutely not. No. If your brain is still functioning and you're still reading and you're enjoying reading and thinking about reading, then you are right for this course. Is this certificate good for aspiring writers? It is, in that all aspiring writers should be close and critical readers, but it won't teach you to be a writer. And we have a number of creative writing courses which would. Are there only a fixed number of places available for this course each year? If yes, how many places? Yes, no more than about 18 online and 18 in Oxford. It's not exactly a fixed number, but we feel that if we made the group much larger than that, students wouldn't get the individual attention that they deserve. So again, it's a good idea to apply at the earlier stage, which is February, because we keep some places open for the later application time, which is May. But by then, if we've had a number of excellent applications in February, the numbers available obviously will be smaller. If I want to go into full-time English literature study after this course, what would my grades need to look like? Depends which university you're applying to. If you're applying to Oxford, you would really need to come out with a fairly good score, either a merit or a distinction. Some universities, particularly during clearing, will accept students who want to go into year 2 who have a pass. And if you're applying to the first year rather than wanting to go into the second year, you would be in competition with people who had A levels, but it's likely if you're applying to another university just to go into the first year, that getting a pass would not be a problem. Is it advisable to apply ASAP, or are all decisions made after the closing date? It isn't exactly a first come, first served basis. We aim to have a number of places still available in May. But if you were to leave it after that, you might well find that we were completely full. And there may well be a smaller number available from the May application if the February application is very strong. What is the age range of people who take the course? We have had people take the course in every decade from 18 up. Does the Victorian fiction section include Trollope, Eliot, and Hardy? It does include Hardy, and there are a number of options that students can study, including Trollope and George Eliot. If I mostly read contemporary literature at the moment, but I'm interested in learning about the type of literature detailed in this course, would this go against me in the selection process? No, it wouldn't. If you want to talk about contemporary literature in the interview, that would be fine with us. Can I apply for a master's in English literature in Oxford after this course, or do I have to get an undergraduate degree first? You would need an undergraduate degree before you applied for a master's. How many years has this course been running, and what is some feedback that students have given on it? It's been running for, I think, about 45 years, and we've had some excellent feedback. A lot of students say we work them very hard. Quite a lot of students say they needed more time than 15 hours a week, particularly at the beginning, before their constant reading had made them faster readers. But I haven't had any feedback that says this is a bad course or an awful course or anything like that. Most of them find it intellectually stimulating and interesting, and they've loved it. And the only sad thing is when it's come to an end. I cannot read Shakespeare by myself today. It is too hard for me. Do you believe that should hold me back from applying? No, until you've had someone talking to you about Shakespeare, you might find it has difficulties, or until you've looked at a good edition with some notes that would help you, you might well find there are difficulties. But we will be with you every step of the way, helping you to understand Shakespeare and other texts. What if I have a non-lit undergraduate degree and I take this course? May I apply to the Masters in English Literature then? If it's a humanities degree, you may well be considered. That's all of the questions so far, but I will wait for a bit and see if there are more to come. Are writing resources or tutors available? Yes, we have study skills courses available. Also, the tutors on this course run an academic writing day school, and we have a day school each year on exams as well. What type of humanities degrees? Any degree in the humanities might be considered, and each application to the masters will be considered on its own merits by the English faculty. Would an undergraduate degree in linguistics and multilingual studies be a benefit to studying this course? Yes, absolutely. Linguistics is part of what we do in the second half of Approaches to Literature 2, because we look at not just the history of the language, but varieties of the language. So we're looking at sociolinguistics. After this course, do we go to second year for undergraduate? You can apply to the second year of a BA. It doesn't guarantee that you will be accepted, but you are eligible to apply. What type of lectures can one attend in addition to the regular lectures and tutorials? The lectures in the English faculty will be on everything that is covered in the syllabus of the BA. So literature all the way through from the earliest medieval, what was once known as Anglo-Saxon, right through to contemporary. Can you talk more about applying to the second year full-time English degree from this course? Well, we give students a lot of information during the Shakespeare Summer School about applying to BA courses through UCAS. The application system is that you send in samples of your work, you may be interviewed. We used to have to take ELAT, which is the English literature, which is a kind of short exam based on close reading. I won't go into great detail about that because we're not doing that this year. And I don't know whether we're going to do it in future years or not. And you choose a college to apply to, and you may or may not be interviewed by that college, but generally if you are interviewed, you'll be interviewed twice, and it's possible that you'll then be sent to another college. All of this happens, the interviewing, in December, and then you hear in January. I'm just going to have to scroll up because questions have been coming thick and fast. How would you describe an applicant that would likely to be accepted? Someone who reads deeply and widely, who is thinking about style, structure, the form, that sort of thing, and is enthusiastic about reading. Please, could you talk a little bit more about the details of studying? For example, if reading Hardy, what sort of aspects are discussed? We would talk about the themes. We would talk about such things as figurative language, imagery, structure, characterization, dialogue, all that sort of thing. What degrees from Open University, would degrees from Open University be considered? Yes. Are there options to specialize in poetry? No, you couldn't say I only want to study poetry. That wouldn't happen. We would expect you to look at all of the genres, but you could write an essay on poetry for quite a few of the different components of the course. When you talk about attending lectures in the English faculty, do you mean with the current full-time English literature students? Yes, I do. Do we cover any contemporary fiction? Not in the undergraduate certificate, no, because we're already doing quite a lot and there's not room to do everything. But were you to go on to a full-time BA or a part-time BA somewhere else, you probably, excuse me, would have that chance. If you're not doing ELAP, what will be covered in an undergraduate interview? You would be asked about your reading, and you would be given an extract or full short poem to talk about. Can you please explain what happens in the interview? What type of poem is asked to be analysed? Could be any kind of poem, but we would make sure that there weren't any difficulties of the language. If there was an obscure or unusual word, we would explain what it meant. I think I'm now up to date. Are the poems provided in advance? No, not in our interviews. You are given a little time during the interview to look at the poem or text, and then we talk with you. We don't just sit here in absolute silence and then decide. We help you through it. During the application, it requires a CV. What if I don't have a related work experience? Just put anything, whatever you've done on your CV. It might be education and work, or it might include your interests, any charity work you've done, any hobbies that are particularly significant, just write whatever. In the application essay, are you looking for personal information or primarily just interest in literature? You don't have to write an essay for our application, but yes, we're primarily interested in your interest in literature. Will the poem be a make or break in getting to the next round of interviews? There's only one round of interviews for you for the undergraduate certificate. And if you apply to the Oxford BA, you'll only be interviewed twice if it's at more than one college. So there isn't a second round of interviews with the same college. Thank you, Juliet. I'm glad you've enjoyed this, and we'll look forward to your application. And thank you, Mandaras, also. Are there any other questions? Happy to answer them. In that case, we're going to go on to the second part of this, which is a little sample of what doing English literature at undergraduate level is like. So I'm going to come out of the questions and go back to sharing my screen. Hope you can all see this now. And we're going to have a look at the opening of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. The novel was published in 1813. It was originally called First Impressions, and you can see why if you've read it. It was written in the 1790s and later revised, and it may have begun as a novel in letters. Austen, of course, was an avid reader, and she would have read widely in 18th and early 19th century writing, and she knew her contemporaries well. So this is the opening of the novel. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighbourhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of some one or other of their daughters. "My dear Mr. Bennet," said his lady to him one day, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" Let's look at that first sentence. It is a truth universally acknowledged. It's a very firm declaration in formal language, and it sounds very authoritative, very portentous. You can't argue with this. It's a truth universally. Everybody knows that. And in a spoken English sentence, the stresses will fall on truth and knowledge. So what's being told to us here about truth and knowing? That a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Again, very formal, very balanced. If X, then Y. If he's got a good fortune, he must be in want of a wife. And it's fairly formal language. It's not a man who has a good fortune. It's a man in possession of. So we've still got an authoritative, formal tone here. And that word want means both desires and lacks, because if you have something, you can't want it, you've got it. And the expression in want of means lacks, doesn't have a wife. If he's got a good fortune, he doesn't have a wife. Well, he must have one. Who's deciding this? Well, it's the neighbourhood, we're told. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering the neighbourhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of some one or other of their daughters. Now, this punctures what we've heard before. We've begun with formality, with authoritativeness, with something unarguable. We're told universally, everywhere, every time. But suddenly, universal is brought down. It's diminished to the neighbourhood, to the locality. And we're very soon going to realise that universal and surrounding families means Mrs. Bennet and her cronies. To the neighbourhood matchmakers, whether the man wants a wife or any particular wife is irrelevant, doesn't matter. And which of the group of girls, the girls that the neighbourhood has produced, he marries, also doesn't matter. It's unimportant. The language is important too. Some one or other of their daughters is colloquial. We're not in that 18th century grand style anymore. So therefore, it's representing the style and thought and speech of the matchmakers, of Mrs. Bennet and her cronies. So we've gone from something very authoritative, inarguable, a universal statement, a statement about an absolute truth, to Mrs. Bennet and her cronies, and comedy, because it is funny to say that a young man in possession of a good fortune, whether he wants it or not, and whether he knows it or not, needs a wife, and he's going to have one or other of their daughters. It almost doesn't matter which. "My dear Mr. Bennet," said his lady to him one day, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" Very short introduction, and then we're straight into the action. We've got dialogue here. There's no backstory as there is in, for example, Mansfield Park. There's no telling us when they were born, where they were born, what their fortune is. We've only had generalities until we suddenly get into My Dear Mr. Bennet. We assume that the person who is leasing Netherfield Park is a young man in possession of a good fortune, because Netherfield Park has grounds, and that suggests a big country house and therefore a fortune. If this person can afford to rent somewhere called Netherfield Park, he's probably pretty well off. And the reader assumes that Mrs. Bennet is going to pursue that fortune with some avidity. And that's very much setting the tone of the plot of the novel right from the beginning. And if we pick out some of the most significant words in this opening, which I've marked in red, in possession, with fortune, rightful property, that one of the main themes of the novel is also introduced. One of the themes of the novel is property, wealth, possessions, and who has a right to them. Those of you who've read the novel will know that there's a whole subplot about Wickham and property and wealth and possessions. And there's a lot of discussion of who owns what and what their possessions are like. Also, if we look at the specific language used, we'll see that there's a lot about truth. And truth versus falsehood is another theme of the novel. But notice a truth and this truth. That's very, very specific. A truth and this truth, not the truth. The truth is wide, it's big, it's pretty well inarguable fact. A truth and this truth suggest that there can be more than one version of truth. Truth is not just one solid, inarguable fact, but maybe speculation, maybe gossip and talk, communicated truths. Who says what about whom and how, and what they say having a potential repercussion is very important in the novel. So when Lady Catherine de Bourgh hears about, apparently, Mr. Darcy offering to marry Lizzie Bennet so that the shades of Pemberley will indeed be polluted, she goes rushing round to find out if this truth is true. When Lydia disgraces the family by running away with Wickham, there's a lot of speculation and gossip, and the Bennets are considered to be some really pitiable. Reputation is very important at this time, of course, and you can't hope for a good marriage if you have a bad reputation. And so this is established pretty early on in the novel, that there are varieties of truth, and that a truth or this truth can be very damaging. So what we've seen is that Austen's writing rewards close reading. That if we pay attention to the lexis, to the word choices, we're going to see that the themes of the novel and some perhaps of the events of the novel are flagged up, are foreshadowed early on. The opening of Pride and Prejudice sets up some of the main themes and plot points of the novel in a very short, very condensed first paragraph. I hope you found that useful, and I hope you enjoy close reading. I've brought up the final screen now, which invites you to contact us anytime. You can email our very lovely, very knowledgeable administrator, Tessa, at undergraduate@conted.ox.ac.uk, and you can email me, sandy.byrne@conted.ox.ac.uk, and I will look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for thanking us, Melanie. So we will end there. Thank you very much for being with us today, and I will hope to hear from you all. And thank you, Tessa and Mary. I will say goodbye.